Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another Montfort University summer live stream. So tonight, the focus is very much so going to be in line with what we've been covering previously over the previous couple of weeks in terms of preparing you guys for the summer and also preparing you guys for what's happening ahead. Tonight's focus, we're going to be really focusing in on those students who are currently at the start of their UCAS journey. So we're going to be having a look and discussing different things that you guys should be considering to complete over the summer holidays to give you and put you in great preparation for when you start your second year of college or sixth form, whatever that may be. So tonight's live stream, I'm joined by two current students at DMU. So we've got Aiden, who's currently in his first year, and we also have Amir, who's currently in his third year. So he's coming to the end of his studies. And these two will be sharing their thoughts and giving their hints and a bit of tips around what you guys could be doing to be maximizing the most of your summer opportunities. So as we're seeing things are starting to gradually reopen again, hopefully you guys will be in a position to start doing some of the things that you would have done in times that have passed. Okay. So if you are watching, please do drop us a comment. If you guys have any questions at all, please do feel free to let us know. I'll be more than happy to answer those questions as we go through. So the first thing that I really want to have a look at is to see where we are currently. So if you are in year 12, if you are in the first year of college, what should you guys be doing right now in terms of helping prepare you guys for when you go over to year 13 or the second year of college? So between now and September, what you should be doing is, if you're considering going to university, is start to look at this research process. So it becomes a lot easier for you guys when you start September if you have a rough idea of what university or what course area that you guys will want to study in. So the great news is that we're now in a position where we can open our campus to our students again, and students can come onto campus and start to explore the different facilities we have on offer. So I know that's something that we haven't been able to do for the past 18 months or so. So we are very much so excited about that. So there's regular campus tours that you can book onto to start seeing our wonderful campus here in Leicester. So open days have started to come back on as well. So we recently had our first in-person open day, and that was on the 3rd of July. So it was a couple of Saturdays ago. And our next open day is taking place in September. So if you did want to come down and have a look, have a sample of the different sessions that we have on offer, then by all means, you're more than welcome to book online to our open day. But also have a look at other universities as well. Have a look at all the different options that are out there for you, because you'll be quite surprised at the wide variety of universities and also university courses that are there on offer for you guys. When you guys start your next academic year in September later on this year, that's when UCAS will officially open. So what I know is that some schools and colleges are already starting to prepare you guys by having a look at different universities, different university courses that may be in a position where they're currently registering you for UCAS. So when you come back in September and you really start to work on this application, you're in a position to do so. So that cycle will open roughly at the start of September. Mid-October, so we've got October 15th. Please use this as a very loose guidance, a very, very loose deadline for Oxbridge. So if you're thinking about applying to Cambridge or Oxford, then they usually have a bit of an earlier deadline compared to the rest of the universities if you're considering studying medicine or veterinary science. So those type of courses do have their own deadline, and you will need to complete your application in a swift manner. So if you guys really delay your research and you don't make the most of your summer, it could be quite tricky to work towards that deadline. Your school and college might have their own internal deadline. So this is usually mid-November. And the reason as to why they do this is so that they can check over your application, they can attach the references and just really cross the T's and dot the I's to make sure that this application is sound and it's ready to be sent off to be assessed by universities. In January, UCAS set its official deadline. So January 2022, they'll set their official deadline. And this deadline is an equal consideration deadline. So what that means to you guys is that if you submit your application via the UCAS deadline, then your application will be looked at in equal consideration compared to the others. If you submit after that deadline, if courses fill up, then you might be leaving yourself in a position where your chances of getting onto your desired course could be less if you don't meet that equal consideration deadline. If you do submit for mid-January, you should start to hear back early March from universities. So they'll start to give you your offers, and then you can start to sort of pick out, right, these are the ones that I want to go to. This is the course that I want to study at. So that usually happens around March, and then you've got up until May to make your final choice, or your choices, because you will make a firm choice and you'll also make an insurance choice. So your number one choice and also your backup choice. And then hopefully we'll transition on towards results day. And that historically takes place in August. Usually it happens of the third week of August, but obviously these dates are fluctuating with everything that's going on in the world. And then come September 2022, you will come over to start university. Now, that might seem an absolute lifetime away, but I can tell you life hits you fast. So at the moment, you might seem like you have all the time in the world, but as you start to progress through the weeks, already we're midway through July, and I'm sure August will go around just as quick, just as we're all starting to enjoy the luxuries of lockdown lifting. So please do not take your eye off this research process in terms of being able to put yourself in a good stead to find out what you guys are going to be doing next. What I want to do now is bring Amir and Aiden into the conversation. So I want to start by giving our students that are currently watching some things to consider. So when they're going through this research process, let's just start with the course. So what type of things do they need to consider when it comes to the course?
So, like in terms of course, you need to know like what you're actually going to study on the course. So, in terms of my course, accounting and finance, there's a specific module called forensic accounting, which you probably might not find at other universities, and I think that's a good thing because it helps diversify your learning a little bit. So, when you look at any course, always look at what the modules are consisting of, and actually, if you need more details, they sometimes also list what the module that our overview is going to be, and also what the optional modules are going to be as well, and if there's like any sort of accreditation um, based on the qualification that you're doing. So, like I know architecture has its own board for accounting and finance. I have ACCA, that sort of thing, just to help you boost your degree even further.
Absolutely. So I've been fortunate to teach at a couple of universities, and even though the course might sound the same at two different institutions, the modules that you guys study could actually be very different. So yeah, absolutely great tip there, Amir. What about yourself, Aiden?
I'd second that, but also add that when you're applying to the university, the modules within the course, you can use that as some sort of inspiration to write your personal statement and the reason why you want to study the course. Sorry, it helps a lot if you know what you're writing about specifically, that you can mention that in your personal statement.
Absolutely. So if you're able to link your current education in terms of what you're doing now to what you're going to study at university, that will fundamentally help you stand out. And it will also show and provide that loose sort of rationale as to why you want to study in that course area. So when you guys were choosing your course, did you guys have a look at things like employability? Was employability a big thing for you guys? And if so,
Yes,
how and why?
yes. So that was employability is like one of those bit is one of the big things in my course area because it wasn't easy to get onto like an accounting and finance job after university. And so I was looking at universities that were like pushing for placement years. So, or like highly encouraged it and allowed you to do a placement year. So, De Montfort University. I also know that some other universities make it mandatory to do a placement year between your second and third year. So, it does depend on if they're trying to get you set up ready for employment.
Sure. Aiden, what's a placement year?
Well, a placement year is a sandwich year in between your second and third year of your studies where you'll apply and go and essentially work for a company for a year. You'll get paid usually, and you'll gain experience, which will be, well, invaluable to when you're applying to jobs. And often, I think over 60% of people who do placements end up getting an offer from that company if they perform well at the placement. So it's a really good way to get your foot in the door, as you say.
Absolutely. So one thing that I'd strongly recommend when you're looking at your course is look at that placement aspect and who the university works with. Because if you know in your mind that you want to work for a potential employer or a specific employer, have a look if the university has already established those types of relationships already. Because it is pretty much a case of developing your network at university and try and getting to know as many people as you can within that industry. So yes, absolutely. Um, Guys, some terminology that students might not be familiar with. Can you tell me what the difference is between like a lecture and a seminar?
Yeah, so a lecture is more or less you're gonna have like you have a person that stands in the front of a lecture theatre, which is maybe consistent of from 50 students to up to 200, 300 students. And the lecturer would normally just talk at you and give you a lot of information at a time. Sometimes they may implement like some lecture examples to help guide you through it, but all it is mainly a lecturer going to be talking at you. Whereas a seminar takes that knowledge that you've learned from the lecture and puts it into practice, and they go through with it you a little bit slower. Sometimes you may have discussion with your peers as well. So seminars are more like the interactive side where you take the lecture material and apply it to like maybe a question, an exam question, or a situation.
Absolutely. One thing that I'd like to add there is that, like, I remember when I was studying at university. I know it's not as current as Amir and Aiden, but sometimes I was a bit skeptical of raising my hand and asking a question in front of everyone else that was sitting in the lecture. I think there was around 70 or 80 that were in my lectures. So sometimes the purpose or one of the fundamental aspects of having a seminar is for you guys to ask any questions that you guys might have. So if the lecture is moving at such a quick speed, please do not be put off by that, or don't think that if you don't catch something, the seminars are there fundamentally for you guys to use as a tool to sort of enhance your learning and ask any questions that you might have. Now, Aiden, you're from Bolton, right?
Hmm.
So why did you choose Leicester? If you don't mind me asking that question.
Yeah, no, of course. It was and there was a number of reasons I wanted to move away from home. That I was part of. I wanted to sort of, have new experiences and put myself in a new environment. And I was attracted to DMU because of its qualifications and facilities for the course that I chose to study. Those are the things that are really important when you're choosing a course is to look at like reviews and employability statistics, things like that, to sort of guide you about where you should go once you've found the right course for you.
Sure. So there's these terminologies that are out there. There's a city-based campus, and there's also just a more remote-based campus. What's the difference between the two, in your opinion?
Um, I think there are advantages to both, but I'd say a city campus gets you involved in the town a bit more. You get to know the area better, but some people like to have a separate environment for where they might go out in the city and then go to campus and be kind of isolated. It just depends on what you want. Um, so yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So Amir, I know you're from Worcestershire, so I know that's pretty rural in most cases. Why is it that you chose to come away from that and came to a city-based campus?
I think it was based on the fact that everything was so close by. So like you could go and study. You can go into your lecture building and just get all your have all your education, but then also go to into the city centre very quickly as well. And I also wanted like a change of environment. So I've been in Worcester for around 18 years now, and I felt like a new city would be a great thing for me to experience, get to have some fun with new friends who are also in a similar situation as me. So I think that was mainly some of the reasons why I wanted to come out into Leicester.
Excellent, excellent. And what about the facilities? So when you guys were thinking about, right, this is the university I want to go to, what was your outlook or perception on facilities?
For me, for my course, because I'm studying music technology, facilities were really important. You know, you come to university and it's about having opportunities that you might not get anywhere else. And that was one of the things that stood out about DMU and why I came here was the availability and the abundance of the facilities that could help me to learn and develop. So the studios, for example, are open 24/7, and there's enough of them for everyone to be able to access them. So that was really important for me.
And what about yourself, Amir? What was your when you was planning about going to university, when you was doing your own research, what was it around facilities and what was it that you needed?
I think for me, in particular, facilities were not a part of like the that sort of important element. I know we do have like a really good law library, um, in a law library and the Bloomberg Trading Room, that we have on campus. But like even then, I was actually kind of more interested in the core staff and the opportunities that they were offering. But in terms of like other facilities, the library was like really good. Like it was open 24/7. This is pre-COVID, by the way, so like it was open 24/7, and it was like amazing for me just to come in and go in the library when I needed to. The gym was also amazing, the leisure center, so some of the recreational facilities that we use here on campus. I was also somewhat interested in that as well.
Absolutely. So thank you so much for that. I think one thing that we can take away from the campus and the city is that one thing that you guys need to consider when you're thinking about your research is, do you want to be on a campus base or do you want to be city based? And what type of facilities that you need to be by? Do you need to be in a busy city centre? Do you need to be by a shopping mall? Do you prefer to be a bit further away? Each has their own pros and cons. I mean, for me, when I went to a campus-based university, so it was away from the city, but it had the benefit of I could park my car, for example. So I know parking in a city can become a bit more challenging. So you guys really need to understand what your personal requirements are. I know we was touching upon this before we went on air, actually, in terms of accommodation and cost. When students are going through this research process and considering what university and course, what type of costs do you guys think they should be aware of and be conscious to?
So one of the big things I will say is look at accommodation prices and how much it will cost you to like rent out like an ensuite or a house or something like that while you're in your particular city. Just because that's going to be your biggest cost while you're here at university. Because some people, for example, it depends on how much of a loan that you may get, and based on that, you're going to have to figure out, okay, what accommodation am I able to afford to stay in? So for me, I've always set my budget around £130 a week because I felt that that would be a good stable price for me to be able to have include other things like my food and going out and getting like clothes and course materials as well. So it's basically accommodation is one of the biggest costs. So try and consider that into your research when you're looking for university as well.
Absolutely. You mentioned food there. I hope you don't mind me asking this question, but how much would you say as a rough estimate or guidance or guideline, sorry, in terms of how much students would need to spend on a weekly shop? What would you say to that?
Off the top of my head, £15 to £20 a week on just a weekly shop normally. You can sometimes get away with 10 if you're lucky, but yeah, it's around that £15 mark a week that you should be aiming for in terms of like budgeting for a weekly shop.
Sure. So no lavish luxuries. Aiden, what about yourself in terms of things? If you do move out, what type of things or costs do you reckon that students need to be aware of? Like, when you came from Bolton, did you bring anything down with you, or did you buy anything specifically? Or
I think sometimes students get, I know I get a little bit worried about how much money I was spending in the first sort of few weeks and month of being at university. But there's a lot of things that come up in that first month that you didn't think about before you went. That you're, oh, I have to buy this and I have to buy this. But that, goes away after you've got set up and you're in your house, and the costs start to become a lot more regular. So I would say try and plan for what you're going to need, but you have to understand that in the first couple of weeks there will be things that you're going to have to pay for that you just didn't think of. But that's all right, because it won't last forever. That was my experience.
Without putting you on the spot here, but do you remember some of those things, those impromptu costs that you?
Let me see.
Putting him on the
Sometimes signing up to clubs or gyms and stuff, I didn't really think of that. And also some just steady like household things like kitchen roll and toilet roll and like washing up liquid, and just stuff that you don't really think about it at home when you're being cared for, and then you go out into the world, you're like, oh, I have to do all these things myself now. Especially washing your clothes sometimes it costs quite a lot to wash every week. So that's just something that you're going to have to budget for.
Absolutely. So for me, my takeaway on that is, when you're looking at the costs based on what you guys have said, is that have a look at not just the obvious costs that you guys will have in terms of accommodation, but then also do look at the other things that you might want to do socially. So if it is attending the gym or even going out with your friends, sometimes people often miss that from their budgeting. So please be conscious, aware of that. And it all comes down to the city that you guys choose to stay into. So depending on the city would depend on the type of opportunities that you guys would have. I want to move the conversation slightly, so I know we're running out of time, and I really want to focus on a bit about research. I know we've spoke about it briefly, but what would you guys say now to students who are about to start their research? If you had to provide them with a couple of tips, where would they start? What would they do? What's some of the things that they could be doing?
So one of the things I would say is look if you have like a course in mind, or you know what sort of course you want to be doing, have a look at like some nearby universities, that as well as some like faraway universities as well, as to which university you should go to. If you are really stuck and you have no idea what university to pick, have a look at some of the league tables. They are honestly not that bad in terms of making sure you get to pick the right university and the quality of facilities that they provide. And the final thing is book onto open days. I will say, if you are really stuck and you have no idea, if you're stuck torn between universities, open days will make that big difference. So I would say, and it's around October to November time, you should have like a few Saturdays booked off. If you have like if you work for like a part-time job or something, and just go to all these different cities and have a look at like the university, because trust me, it makes a big difference when making a decision.
Absolutely. What about yourself, Aiden? So when you started your research, what was it that you was doing? What type of guidance, hints could you share with any students that are listening?
Well, I think it's important to, first of all, know what you want to study. So it's worth thinking about that. I'm sure that some of you will know and some of you might not. But to work out what you want to study, and then specifically what within that area do you think you're really interested in, because there are certain like modules, as we've discussed, that might not cover that aspect in certain universities and will in others. So you want to just try and maybe make a list of the things that you want from your experience? Do you want a city campus? Do you want to be far away to home or close to home? And just see which universities check the boxes in terms of the course and stuff like that. And it'll help you narrow down a list. And then once you have a few options, then open days, like Amir said, are really important to get a vibe of where you're going to be living, essentially.
And it's not always the be all and end all, is it? I hope you don't mind me sharing this information about yourself personally. So again, another conversation that we was having before we came on air was that you've changed your mind, haven't you, on the courses that you wanna do. So I think the thing is that it can seem like a very big decision that you guys have got to make in terms of, right, what is it that I want to study? You could be in a position, as the guys have mentioned, where you want to know, well, sorry, you already know what you want to do. And you could be in a position where it isn't so obvious and you're torn between a couple of subjects. I mean, Aiden's living proof. So he had a couple of subjects that he was interested in. And now he's made a switch over from one to the other. And I think the most important takeaway here is that if you're in the category where you're not quite sure what you want to do, I think my advice to you guys would be think about your current education now. So what is it that you're currently studying? Are you doing A levels or are you doing BTECs? Have a look at some of the modules that you're particularly enjoying and use that as a search point, because what you'll find is that there's over 100,000 or 250,000 different courses you can study at university. So the variety is absolutely mind blowing. So you will be able to find something very niche and really tailored towards your personal interest. And that's where I would start if I was in your position. I would start with what is it that interests you. So right now, over the summer, if I was in your position, I'd be looking at starting this research process and also starting to gain your work experience. Now, I did mention at the start of the live stream that we're starting to see restriction ease to a certain extent. And hopefully what we'll see off the back of that is opportunities for students to undertake some work experience, whether that be in a part-time capacity, whether that be voluntarily. Any opportunities that you guys can get over the summer, I strongly advise you to take them on board, because it's only going to strengthen your application for when you put it forward towards university. With that being said, if you find yourself in a position where you haven't been able to get any form of work experience, then my and the university stance on that is that please do not worry, please do not stress yourself. So we understand how difficult it is out there currently, and we understand that not all students are going to get the opportunity to undertake work experience. So if you are in a position where you can, please do take that opportunity. Doesn't matter in terms of what type of capacity that may be, whether it's 1 hour, 2 hours, 2 weeks, it doesn't really matter. Anything that you can use and take from will build up your application, and it will also develop your skill set, which is what we're looking for in terms of our applications. Utilize this time now in terms of starting your research. If universities are offering open days, if they are offering campus tours, do get yourself involved. Sign up to any online taster sessions that they might be doing, or taster workshops that might be happening over the next 3 weeks, couple of weeks or so, sorry, in terms of being able to use that as a tool to sort of guide you in terms of, right, this is the course area that I want to study it. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to wrap this up. So I just want to say a massive thank you for joining us this afternoon, early evening. And I hope you found the session useful. If you do, I noticed there was a question from Shafiq. So my apologies if I said your name incorrectly. To answer your question, I would possibly push you in the direction of emailing our admissions team, so they will be able to provide you with more information on your application. So we've just had a question coming from Sankar. So when will the offline classes? Okay, so basically what you're asking is when will we move away from online classes? So at the moment, it's very difficult for us to say a specific date. So the university still has a commitment to ensure that all staff and students are safe on our campus, and will continue to work over the summer on a plan to ensure that this hybrid learning approach is implemented safely, as opposed to giving you a specific date of when that will happen. We cannot do that at this stage, I'm afraid. And it's a case of us following the guidance and that the government has produced in order to keep our staff and students safe. So hopefully that's answered your question. So I just want to say thank you so much for joining. Thank you to Amir and Aiden for giving up your part of your evening to join us. And we will see you shortly on another live stream. So thank you. And